The Tower of Babel, the architecture of rebellion. In our last encounter, we stood as witnesses to the absolute end of an age. We beheld how the windows of heaven and the fountains of the great deep blotted out every footprint of a humanity that had lost its way, leaving but 8 souls floating in the silence of a shoreless ocean. But what befalleth when the waters recede, and the heart of man treadeth once more upon dry ground? Is it possible that the memory of judgment is shorter than the ambition of the survivor? Hast thou ever pondered the exact moment wherein the fear of God was transmuted into defiance? How was it that a single family, saved by sovereign grace, multiplied into an army that no longer looked toward heaven with gratitude, but with intent of conquest? Many behold the Tower of Babel as a mere unfinished edifice, a legend of confounded tongues. But what if I told thee it was humanity's first attempt to forge a global dominion? A spiritual tyranny intended to storm the very gates of eternity. Who was the man that persuaded an entire world that brick and bitumen were mightier than lightning and thunder? Why was the unity of the human race seen by the Creator not as a triumph, but as a peril that must be fractured forever? What secret device lay hidden within that plain of Shinar, which constrained God himself to come down to stay the work? Abide with us. Today, we tell no nursery tale, we go to unearth the foundations of the world's first empire, the psychology of a legendary tyrant named Nimrod, and that day when humanity spake one language for the last time, before silence and confusion divided us even unto this day. Prepare thyself, for we are about to lay the first brick in the tower that sought to touch the throne of God. Nimrod, the architect of chaos. Amongst the survivors of the post-Diluvian world, there arose a figure whose shadow would be cast upon every empire of history. He was no simple shepherd, nor a humble tiller of the ground, but the first mighty one in the earth. His name was Nimrod, and his lineage was marked by the fierce ambition of his grandfather, Ham. Nimrod mastered not only the art of hunting wild beasts, he mastered the very will of men. While Noah preached obedience unto the God who had delivered them, Nimrod offered a seductive alternative, self-sufficiency. It was he who transformed the fear of judgment into the fury of rebellion. Ancient traditions and sacred texts describe him not merely as a king, but as a giant of intellect and war, who persuaded humanity that if God should ever send the waters again, they would build a thing so high that heaven itself must surrender. Under his command, the liberty of the nomad perished, and the first metropolis was conceived. Nimrod founded not only Babel, he founded the conceit that man may be his own god, provided he hath a wall to protect him and a throne from whence to defy the Most High. His kingdom began in Shinar, but his spirit of tyranny became the very DNA of every empire that hath since sought to rule the world under a single crown of iron. And Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord, wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod the mighty hunter before the Lord. Brick, fire, and bitumen, the engineering of fear. The building of Babel was no act of faith, but a triumph of technology over terror. In the ancient world, man wrought with stone, the raw matter of creation. But in the plain of Shinar, the ambition of Nimrod demanded something more, uniformity and absolute control. It was then that humanity took its first great industrial leap. They forsook the natural stone for brick burned thoroughly with fire, an element fabricated by the hand of man, each piece identical to the other, designed to fit into a structure of total obedience. Yet the true secret of its strength lay not in the clay, but in the abyss. To bind these millions of blocks, they employed bitumen, a dark, viscous slime that bubbled up from the bowels of the earth. This substance served not merely as mortar, but as an impenetrable seal. Their intent was at once clear and darkened. They were constructing a massive bunker. Should the God who deluged the world choose to open the windows of heaven once more, they would stand protected within an artificial mountain, sealed by the pitch. It was humanity's first attempt to make for themselves a name, a monument to self-sufficiency where every fired brick represented a nail in the coffin of their dependence upon the divine. The tower was not merely an edifice, it was a declaration of war against the waters and against the heavens. And they said one to another, Go to, let us make brick, and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. The ziggurat, a bridge unto the stars. For Nimrod and his priests, the tower was no mere physical refuge, it was a spiritual machine. In the ancient traditions of Mesopotamia, Babel was conceived as a ziggurat, a cosmic stairway designed to touch the heavens. Yet, this was no act of worship, but an act of usurpation. They sought to forge a portal, Babilu, or gate of God, to constrain the divine to descend upon their own terms, or worse, that man might ascend and seize dominion over the times and the seasons. From atop its 7 polychromatic levels, the astronomers of Shinar studied the celestial hosts, searching the stars for that knowledge which God had sealed away after the fall of Eden. Each story of the tower was consecrated to a celestial body, shimmering with glazed tiles that mirrored the light of the sun and the moon, proclaiming that humanity no longer had need of divine revelation, for they now possessed the science of the stars. Babel became the cradle of astrology and the esoteric arts, the place where man first attempted to hack the very code of the universe. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven. The day of the great silence. How doth it feel, the exact moment wherein a civilization loseth its capacity to commune? It was no sudden blast, but a massive psychological collapse. Imagine the dawning of an ordinary day upon the plain of Shinar. Thousands of workmen ascend the ramps, the taskmasters cry out their orders, and the din of industry filleth the air. But suddenly, a simple command, bring hither more bitumen, becometh a terrifying gibberish. The man at thy side, with whom thou hast broken bread for years, suddenly uttereth sounds that seem as groans or strange chants. Fear spreadeth swifter than any pestilence. Distrust infecteth every corner of the city. They who were once brothers of blood and tongue now look upon one another with suspicion and violence, believing the other to be mocking them or conspiring in secret. The greatest project in history grindeth to a halt, not by a natural disaster, but by the invisible barrier of language. It was the day humanity realized that their greatest strength, their unity, was a divine gift that had just been stripped away. And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. The dispersion, the birth of nations. The plain of Shinar, once the epicenter of human ingenuity and glory, became the stage for the greatest retreat in history. The tower, the colossus of brick that sought to storm the heavenly mansions, lay mortally wounded, not by fire, but by the void. Without a common tongue, the empire fractured into 1,000 shards of broken glass. Those who could yet understand one another gathered by instinct, forming clans that looked upon each other with hostility and fear. Families that once shared a single destiny now turned their backs, beginning a forced march toward the four corners of the earth. It was the violent birth of nations. Some journeyed toward the coasts of the Great Sea, others toward the frozen steppes of the north or the dense jungles of the south, carrying with them the trauma of confusion and the fragments of a technology that would soon pass into legend. Babel remained there, a colossal skeleton of pride, sinking slowly into the sands of Mesopotamia. The name they so hungered to make for themselves became an eternal synonym for confusion. Yet the legacy of Shinar did not perish in the desert, it seeped into the very blood of humanity. Every border, every language, and every cultural conflict that divideth our world today is a distant echo of that day when God decreed it better for man to be divided in his humility than united in his rebellion. The Tower of Babel fell in silence, but its shadow is yet cast upon every modern attempt to unify the world without looking toward the heavens. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. The code of Shinar, the brick, the stone and the throne of God. To fathom the magnitude of the rebellion at Babel, we must behold the very materials of its making. Throughout the Holy Writ, the stone represented the handiwork of God. It is solid, unique, and fashioned by nature. God commanded altars of whole stone, not wrought by the tool of man. Yet, at Babel, humanity rejected the stone and fabricated the brick. The brick is the human imitation of creation, each one identical, mass-produced, and stripped of all individuality. It symbolizeth a system wherein persons are no longer unique souls, but interchangeable parts within the machinery of the state. But there dwelleth a darker secret within its design. The ziggurats of Mesopotamia were not built for habitation, but as artificial mountains. In the ancient world, it was believed that God dwelt upon the summits of the true mountains. By erecting a mountain of brick, Nimrod was not merely attempting to climb unto heaven out of curiosity, he was attempting to build his own Eden, a replica of the Mount of God where man might dictate his own laws. The use of bitumen, a product of decay and death that well out from the ground, to seal the tower, was the ultimate symbol of their philosophy, an attempt to reach eternal life and security by utilizing the elements of death and human labor, utterly rejecting the sustenance of the divine. Final reflection, the mirror of Babel. Hath the Tower of Babel truly fallen, or hath it merely changed its form? As we behold our world today, a world entwined by fiber optics, algorithms, and the promise of a new global unity, it is impossible not to discern the reflections of Shinar. We continue to seek to make us a name, we continue to trust in the brick of our own technology to shield ourselves against eternal truths. Babel left us a lesson engraved in the very DNA of history. Unity without God is no peace, but a prison of uniformity, and the confounding of tongues was no act of cruelty, but an intervention of mercy. God stayed the work so that man, in his wandering, might have the occasion to seek him individually, rather than being lost within the machinery of an empty empire. The true ladder unto heaven is not built with human hands, sweat, and bitumen, but with the humility to acknowledge that the Creator needeth not for us to climb unto his height, for he hath already designed the path to descend unto us. The ruins of Shinar are but dust today, yet their warning liveth on. Nothing which we build for our own glory shall remain standing when heaven chooseth to speak. If this journey through the foundations of the first global rebellion hath stirred thy soul, forget not to subscribe and strike the bell. In biblical ledger, we do not merely tell stories, we unearth the truth. Leave a word in the comments. What dost thou believe is the Babel of our generation? We desire to hear thy thoughts. But the story endeth not in confusion. From amidst the scattered nations and the divided lineages, God is about to appoint a single man. A man who must forsake all, departing from his country and his kindred, to begin the most significant journey of faith in all of time. Prepare thyself, for in our next episode, we shall meet the man whose seed would change the destiny of the world forever. Next chapter, Abraham, the call of the promise.